What's the EU doing to step up innovation and competitiveness? We've got some highlights for you from a Euronews debate on that, starting with a state of play, then investment, skills, and regulation. Okay, here we go. Europe at a turning point. How many times have you heard about this over the years, right? Are we at a turning point? How do we invest, innovate, and lead as Europe? If Mario Draghi is to be believed, he came out with a report for the Commission across the street here in Brussels that called for strong changes, for more innovation, more competitiveness. And he laid out what needed to be done. Tell us about that, Antonios.
Let's start by saying that the Draghi report is not the usual, or was not the usual Brussels ritual where we just publish a paper, publish a report, and then we discuss a little bit about it, and then we forget about it.
And then put it in the box there. Right?
Why? Because it was commissioned by the EU. It was endorsed on the highest level by the President herself.
Yeah.
It was written into the mission letters of the commissioners. So, as far as I'm concerned, by all means and purposes, it is a promise. It is a pledge. And this is why it has created so much expectation from the people in order to be implemented.
What are a couple of very important points that we need to hit on?
The most important thing of all is energy. Energy is a foundational sector because it creates the conditions for all the other sectors to become more competitive if there are affordable energy prices.
What else?
Critical raw materials, mining. These are all the backbone of the industrial economy, and we need to go faster for that as well.
Suzana, how do you add to the mix from what you're doing?
So the issues that are pointed out in the Draghi report and in the Letta report are issues that have been known for a long time now.
Single market isn't happening.
We need convergence. So overcoming fragmentation, costs of energy. So one thing I could add to what was said previously is also he talks a lot about electricity and the state of our grids. It does connect to energy, but it also connects to our competitiveness in the digital space. So effectively, if we're going to compete in all basically the major sectors in which the global competitiveness race is happening, we need to revamp the state of our grids. And in the report, he estimates €1 trillion needed up to 2040 in that. So,
and that's not just public funding. It has to be also private funding. We have to attract private funding for that.
But so I want to come back to this turning point, because just as any window of opportunity, a window opens and then a window closes. And I'm afraid that we're actually at the point where this window, where we are at a turning point, is closing, and that we have no guarantees that we're actually emerging on the winning side of this turning point in history.
And is that because the Parliament's hopelessly divided, because the Commission can't really agree on these things, or what?
That's because we haven't had a fundamental shift in perspective that the Letta report points towards, as well as the Draghi report, precisely to think of our single market in a different way, right?
Okay. Massimo,
I'll give maybe a bit of a controversial, but I hope bringing a little bit of balance to the discussion. When you look at those topics that are on the table and the state of play in the EU, I think Draghi is giving us an outcry of vision and despair on the gap that is creating.
Yes, I agree with almost everything you said, because that's a perfect description of the situation. This is a key moment in time. Either we make it now, or we will become in Europe a kind of the fourth world, not the third, the fourth world, falling behind US, China, and India. That's what will happen. Everybody knows it. You know it, you know it. The approaches are different, everybody knows it. All of us know it. And that means this sense of urgency has to be made clear every day.
So I want to shift to the investment aspect. And the Invest EU fund from 2021 to 27 earmarked 47 billion for guarantees from the EU side, supposedly mobilizing up to 650 billion euros with the private sector on investment. How much have you seen of that?
An interesting aspect of InvestEU is member states could top up the fund, right? So, for example, countries like Romania and Bulgaria topped up the fund with cohesion money that they hadn't spent. They've put it into InvestEU. From the moment when these countries topped up the funds, it took 1 year for the amendment to the regulation that allowed them to then access the money. And then another year. So basically, they couldn't. The companies, the SMEs trying to apply for this money within the countries could not get close to the money for a considerable amount of time. In my view, a year is too long.
Yeah.
So these lengthy processes absolutely need to be adjusted to the real needs of those seeking to access this money.
Yeah.
What I want to mention is it has something to do with a kind of leadership, setting goals, supervising how the things work. A year in financing is an unbelievable thing. It's 100 years in a kind of an innovation circle.
Absolutely.
And so that's only this how, with your experience, how we can speed up these processes. That's the main question.
Yeah, Antonios, do you have any ideas on that? We're on the investment part of this, right?
It's not some greater force that was beyond our control, right? We did specific, conscious choices, and that was to put all our emphasis on sustainability at the expense of competitiveness, economic security, economic growth. And we know the result now. What the Draghi report is doing is this mentality shift. It brings back balance to the way we think about the tension between competitiveness and sustainability, between the environment and the industrial economy. But for this to happen, we need urgent action. But what kind of action? We don't need more taxes, more bans, more sweeping regulation. We need simplification in order for the investment to come. Instead of that, what we see, in some cases, not all of them, but in some cases, we even see Europe that is working actively against our own industries. Take the evidence, every industry you like. You want the automotive. We used to be the global innovator. We used to be the global production center. That's not the case anymore. We cannot compete. You want the solar panel industry. We used to be the global hub of innovation and production here.
Okay, we hit on investment. Now for the people part. How does the EU give us the tools, the skills that we need to be more competitive, to be more innovative? Let's take a look.
I visited CleanTech schools of skills in the European Union.
Right.
And what I found extremely interesting is that they were actually originated by the private sector. And the reason they were originated by the private sector is because indeed regulation was not covering this aspect. And so the private sector can't wait forever for there to be sort of governmental institutions organizing this. And so they've started creating these schools of skills.
The private sector takes the initiative because it's got the need, right? You have got a set of needs that is evolving. Right. Technologies are evolving. The ways of working are evolving. You have the needs and you need to do something. Yep. I'll go back to your point on skills. The point is super valid. If you look at the pyramid in Europe, unfortunately, the demographic pyramid is upside down. And therefore, there is so much that you can do with formal education in school to feed the needs. And there is a lot more that companies need to do. Yep. And therefore, lifelong learning, upskilling, reskilling. At the time of transformation like the one that is going on right now with AI, you need forcefully to go and equip your people to do that.
Okay. But I would like to put emphasis on some little measure on the Draghi report that not many people know. And this is if you want skilled people, workers, top skilled workers, then you need also top teachers. And what happens now is that the European universities, for example, they cannot compete with the US universities because of salary. Let's face
that's
it.
true, yeah.
So there is a small recommendation in the Draghi report that says that we should create a position for top researchers, top professors that are, to put it very simply and bluntly, that are paid by the European Union budget. So it is competitive, the salary, and they can move freely within the European university.
I want to add a tiny little thing, which reflects to, we need, in the terms of skills and education, a mental shift as well. Because I hear, not very often, from people in Europe, we want to be the best in the world. I want to be the best. I want to be better than my colleague in school. I want to get the best possible university degree. I don't hear it because we are culturally, I don't know, maybe it's I grew up in Germany. It freaked me out there as well, but I understand the reasons for it. In Germany, pointing out being the best, better than others, has an historical background. So I made my peace with it, my personal peace. But it's wrong, because you only will be successful, and honestly, we only can innovate Europe and we can get investments if we have the best people here. And that means we need the best. And this European Union should, please excuse this word, produce the best people running the businesses here, the best people running political things here. And we don't do it.
Now we sink our teeth into a policy bugbear. Regulation. How do we adjust it to make it effective, but at the same time not stifle innovation and competitiveness? Well, good luck with that.
I don't think we should deregulate. We should strike the balance. I think if we could call it least for a moratorium on it for a few years, and where we say if we add one, we're going to take one off the back of the industry, that would be tremendously helpful. I'm not even looking for deregulation. But could we call for a stabilization that allows us to focus on the major mission, that is not to solve all the risks in the world, but actually to boost the economy and the competitiveness of the country?
I like the idea of the moratorium, but what I wanted to say is this, that we can talk a lot about the regulation over the past years and all the negatives that it had, or the positives. And the positives in this case is that we have managed to create the most socially responsible and the most environmentally aware value chain on the planet. Yes, in that respect too, I'm unapologetically European. European industry is creating the most sustainable, the fairest products in the world right now. So this is exactly why we need to support them in order to be more competitive abroad and in order to be able to scale innovation and so on. How? With simplification. Simplification, cheaper energy, affordable energy, and as I said, support to be able to compete in a very hostile environment.
Yeah, it's a tough environment. A very important point about red tape and green tape. You want to talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. I think the difference between red tape and green tape makes a difference between simplification and smart simplification, because not any simplification will necessarily help the European Union, because as we've all agreed, these problems have been ongoing for a long time. So unfortunately, what I saw in the omnibuses is also we're scrapping away so very new legislation, right? So the CSRD is being modified. So now all these companies in tier 2 are no longer being reported on. They're not reporting on their supply, but that's where the supply chain risks are. So actually we are ending up in a situation where for investors, they have less visibility and confidence in the European market, and they're now in a wait and see phase, which makes the investment environment rather conservative. And so that is a bit of the issue.
We have given
exactly. So we've cut out the green tape, but the whole point of the green tape was to steer investment systemically in one direction, providing us with the information that we need. So in a sense, while I'm in favor of simplification for businesses, and all the examples I've brought forward today are exactly speaking of the hurdles, the timelines, I'm not in favor of the simplification that's been sort of really cutting out relevant information for investors. And by the way, imagine you're an investor investing in a small and medium enterprise, but this no longer reports, right? So your return on investment is decreasing because you can't report on it because it's not showing up then in other reports. So we have created
Suzana,
a problem.
I agree with you, and I think we've had a lot of learnings from the CSRD journey. The CSRD journey,
Corporate Social Responsibility Directive.
Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, which in the beginning came like a punch in the stomach to all of us, right? And I think we were well positioned because we had already done a lot of work in the area of governance, sustainability, and so forth. So we were very well positioned. We have actually just published our second double materiality report, and the first one that is CSRD compliant. And we had an enormous amount of learnings that actually boosted productivity, that boosted competitiveness while doing the right things on sustainability.
Okay, that's it on this Euronews debate. You can see the full version on the article of this event on Euronews.com. Also, keep an eye on these issues because they continue to develop on Euronews.com, on TV, on the social nets. So keep an eye on that. I'm Chris Burns. See you next time. Big hand to our guests.
Thank you, Suzana.
Thank you.